Thanks for having me here. Hello, welcome to this presentation. I would like to start with an observation. Many yield strategies nowadays require liquidity, staking, and assets on different chains. They also require high computational power to decide how to rebalance and how to react to market changes. But with EVM chains, you quickly run into limits. Computational power is not very high with smart contracts, and cross-chain communication very quickly becomes messy, and everything is just much more complicated than it needs to be. The Polkadot Hub is going to change that. So hello again, my name is Torsten. I'm leading the contracts team at Parity Technologies, and in this presentation I'm going to talk about how the Polkadot Hub and the smart contract engine in the Polkadot Hub is going to create a better environment for staking and yield protocols. Yield strategies nowadays fall into a few categories. For example, you have liquid staking tokens, restaking derivatives, you have modular lending systems like Morpho or synthetic dollars like Ethereum. But although all these systems look quite different, at the end they're based on a few common things. For example, they need to interact with different assets, they need access to a staking system, and they need logic to react to changes in the market or to reassess risk. Although there has been a lot of developments in the last couple of years when it comes to yield strategies, all of them at the end run in the same limits that are constrained as follows. For example, we have compute ceilings. Computational power of smart contracts are very limited. Whenever you want to do something complicated like assessing the market, optimization, a simulation or whatever in a smart contract, you just can't do it. You need to move that logic off-chain into some bot. And that means that the core of your protocol is not verifiable. Another limitation is fragmentation. If you have a strategy that needs to interact with different chains, you need to have a complex setup of different deployments, of wrappers, of bridges, and everything creates a big overhead. For example, if you just want to move collateral from one chain to another one, you already have a complex setup just for that. Another constraint is staking system itself that is usually isolated. A staking system is usually on a different level, and that means that your protocol, whenever it wants to interact with a staking system, it creates a lot of indirection and it quickly becomes very expensive. These three constraints usually limit what the yield systems and yield strategies can actually do nowadays on a blockchain. And the question is, why is it actually happening? There's one main reason for this. The staking system is usually in one environment and smart contract execution is usually in a different environment. They don't share one execution environment. And that means that yield strategies quite often require bridges, wrappers, and complex off-chain logic. The Polkadot Hub is going to change that. With the Polkadot Hub, you have one unified system that comes with staking, tokens, governance, and smart contract execution all in one system. And that allows you to lift a lot of the constraints that comes with traditional yield systems and blockchains. Now I mentioned Polkadot. So let me quickly talk about Polkadot. Polkadot originally has a very modular design that is great for protocol engineers, but it's not very suitable for application teams because there is not one unified and central place for deploying your smart contracts. This is going to change with the Polkadot Hub. The Polkadot Hub is the one central main place in the Polkadot universe. And it has one environment, one unified environment for assets, staking, Polkadot governance, and contracts in one place that can interact with each other without any wrappers, without any bridges in a completely decentralized and trustless environment. With the Polkadot Hub, a lot of the limitations of staking systems can be lifted. Let me talk about the smart contract layer in the Polkadot Hub, which is called Revive. Revive is very important for the success of the Polkadot Hub and has three main properties. First, Revive has two different smart contract execution engines. You have the EVM that you know from Ethereum that allows you to deploy your Solidity smart contracts and is fully EVM compatible. And then you have PVM, a different engine that gives you a lot of computational power. And these two engines, they live in the same address space. They are fully interoperable. Smart contracts for one engine can interact with smart contracts of the other engine. Another property is that Revives gives direct access to primitives that allow you to access assets and liquidity on different chains without any complex wrapper or bridge logic. And finally, native staking in Polkadot and native governance is directly integrated in Revive. That means that if you build a protocol that needs to interact with staking yields, you can do this without any complexities and without any bridging logic, totally synchronously. Now let me highlight the two smart contract engines that come with Revive. On the one hand, I already said we have EVM. If you have an EVM protocol that runs on an EVM chain, you can directly deploy this to the Polkadot hub and to Revive. You don't need to rewrite anything. Everything works out of the box. Your Solidity contracts just work. And also your existing tooling from the Ethereum ecosystems work. MetaMask, Foundry, Hardhat, for example, work out of the box without any problems. That means that if you have an existing protocol that runs on Ethereum, the EVM engine in Revive is the simplest way for you to deploy your protocol to Polkadot. Now I want to talk about the other engine, the innovative engine, which is called PVM or Polka Virtual Machine. PVM gives you all the computational power that you don't find in any other engines. It allows you to deploy more complex smart contracts with more computational power. Usually when you deploy a smart contract and you need to do any computation, it's limited to very simple arithmetic. But with these smart contracts, with PVM, you can use heavier math. You can do, for example, on-chain risk modeling. You can implement cryptographic operations all in a smart contract, something that was not possible before. PVM is based on RISC-V, by the way. And as you might know, Ethereum researchers are discussing to move Ethereum also towards RISC-V. With Revive, you have this technology already nowadays. So whenever you want to deploy a protocol, a yield protocol that has more intelligence directly in the smart contract, PVM is the way to go. I want to now highlight two examples that show the advantages of Revive. One is, for example, if you want to implement a yield router, imagine the situation where your yield router needs to interact with three different systems. One would be the staking of the native token. In the Polkadot universe, the native token is the DOT. Another one, for example, is interaction with a stablecoin on a different chain A. And another one is interaction with liquidity on yet another chain B. With conventional systems, you would require a system of bridges and wrappers to make that possible. You have a lot of overhead, and it becomes very messy and maybe not decentralized and requires trust. With Revive, you need a single smart contract to orchestrate all of that. And that happens without any additional bridge or wrapper logic. Another example is on-chain risk management. You have a lending protocol. You need to regularly reassess risk and need to, for example, rebalance collateral or any other assets. And that is very complicated to do with on-chain logic. So usually you need to move that off-chain into bots. As we already said, with PVM, all of that can actually be implemented in a smart contract. The big advantage is that this logic then becomes more transparent and is accessible to everyone, can be audited, and it requires less trust. Now let me talk about the timeline. The timeline is actually very simple. Revive is already available on testnet today, and you can try it. Revive on Polkadot at the Polkadot hub will become available at the end of the year. If you want to try it out on testnet, you can start today and you can become one of the first movers to deploy your contracts or your protocols on the Polkadot hub. So I invite you, if you're interested, to scan this QR code, talk to us. We are interested to work with teams that want to deploy their protocols on the Polkadot Hub. And we also have interesting incentives for everyone, builders programs, and so on. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thanks, Torsten. So, yeah, before going, so if anyone has any questions for him, just, oh, okay.
How this is different from the contract panel within the parachains and the EVM models that.
Yeah, I didn't want to go too deep into tech, but traditionally in Polkadot, you have parachains. Polkadot Hub is a new thing in Polkadot. It's a central thing. Parachains still exist, but again, in the past, if you wanted to deploy your smart contracts, you would have to deploy them on a parachain. Now we can do it in a central system with Polkadot Hub. But Polkadot Hub still integrates with all the parachains. You still have a decentralized system to connect, to send messages, to send tokens to the parachains, so it's fully interoperable.
Awesome. Anyone else has any questions?
There's one more question there.
Hi, how easy is it to take existing working smart contracts on Ethereum and drop them in? Like, would you say 100% of anything you dropped on would work flawlessly first time?
You have a choice. You can either use the EVM engine or the PVM engine. If you use EVM, everything is fully compatible, no problem. With PVM, it's not possible for every system. If I go more technical, if you use some old version of Solidity, then that will not work. The compiler that we use is only possible with later versions, but that's one of the main limitations. Otherwise, also the PVM side is Ethereum compatible. So it will also work. If you start nowadays with the latest version of Solidity, with a new protocol, you have no problems to bring it to PVM and to enjoy the computational power of it.
Awesome. So anyone else has any questions? Awesome. Thank you, Torsten.